Hey everyone from YouTube, welcome to the channel. This is Rob, Social Experiment, and you're here to watch me write a novel. Welcome to the first ever discussion video for the first ever chapter in the novel that I'm writing. If you're watching this video, then I'm going to assume that you've already watched my launch video where I discuss, what this project is all about, and you've also watched the video where I introduced the first chapter of the book entitled Prologue. If you haven't watched those videos, please go ahead and watch those now. Otherwise, this video is not going to make a whole lot of sense to you. In these discussion videos, I'm hoping to talk to you guys about the things that I was thinking about while I was writing this chapter, the things that I struggled with, and the ideas that I thought of. But these discussions also might include thoughts about where the book is going to go in the future. So those kind of discussions might be spoilery. They might not be, because I may not, in fact, go in that direction. But there's a chance that I might talk about future plot points, or the fact that I'm writing something now because I'm planning to use it in a certain way in the future. So if those kind of things would ruin the experience for you, you may not want to watch these videos. On the other hand, it may make it more interesting for some of you, because I'm really kind of letting you in to how my brain works and why I'm doing the things I'm doing as I'm writing this novel now. Thought I'd start the discussion off by throwing out some numbers. The chapter contained 3,391 words, and not counting spaces, it had 15,080 different characters. Based on that, it looks like I've completed about 3.4% of the book, meaning I've got about another 30 to 40 chapters to go before the book is done. Obviously, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get all the plot in there and get it resolved within that number of chapters. If you watched the launch video where I explained this whole project, you might recall that I said that this first chapter, the prologue, is actually something that I wrote back in 2012, which was the first time that I had the idea to try and sit down and write the novel. I remember back then when I started that I found it quite challenging right away. Like, there's just a lot of detail and a lot of research that you have to do even to write something basic. For example, even though I didn't discuss where the first chapter takes place, I know where it takes place. I also know what time of the year it takes place. So I'd have to get details right, like the type of foliage that they would have there, the temperature that it would be that time of the year, so on and so forth. And so just a lot of respect to novelists out there, because there's just so much work that has to be done just to get, mundane little details correct if you're trying to write something where everything that you're doing is as accurate as it can be. I recall that when I was thinking about writing this chapter way back when, I realized that I had to try and make it as captivating and interesting as I could, because readers are just not going to give you that many chances to hook them in, and so the first couple chapters better have something in it to let them know what they can expect and hopefully grab their attention. So in order to do that, I decided to start by introducing the main antagonist, which is a fellow by the name of Il Padrone. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not super thrilled with his nickname, and I have to tell you that right off the bat, I sort of hit the limit of my creative abilities. Coming up with names was a really hard thing. I remember toying with different things that sounded dangerous, like the wolf or the lion or something like that, but all that seemed too corny for me, and I eventually settled on this name, Il Padrone, which is basically Italian for the boss, because he gets everything his way. And I also think that I've thought of an explanation that I'll give out later in the book as to why he'd be walking around with an old-fashioned Italian nickname. It is my plan as I write future chapters to keep the identity of Il Padrone a secret. It's going to be essentially an enduring mystery that should last all the way through to the very end of the novel. So one of the things I'm doing here is giving out some information or clues that readers can use to help them try and figure out the identity of this character. For example, it's known that he's male. It's also been mentioned a few times that he's young. But also he seems to know his way around the academy. He had a key to get into the building, and when he met with the headmaster was surprised to see him, but only because of the late hour. He knew who he was, he smiled, he shook his hand. All these things are letting you know that the character is known and might even be some type of insider at the Academy. Also, by way of giving information regarding the universe in which this book takes place, it's revealed that Il Padrone has power to influence people's actions and basically get them to do what he wants. It's hardly the most creative power that a villain has had. It's certainly been done before, in lots of other mediums. I can remember watching a show on Netflix called Jessica Jones that had a character that had this power, and he was like amazing and cruel and creative with the way that he used it. Now, I'm not planning to copy of any of those things. I just know that this type of character, has a lot of potential, and I hope in the future, as I write, to be able to come up with interesting ways in which he can use that power. He's also obviously very dangerous. He has admitted that he's engaged in a plot to take over the academy, and he's done some dark things to help him reach that goal. For example, he admits to having killed the headmaster's oldest son, Jack, because Jack was planning to take over for his dad and become the new headmaster at the academy. In this chapter, he also essentially kills the current headmaster. With the current headmaster out of the way, along with his replacement, the only option left appears to be the youngest son by the name of Winthrop, and it seems as though Il Padrone feels like that kid will mess things up, and that'll create the opportunity for him and whoever he represents to take over the school. Another concept introduced by Il Padrone in his conversation with the headmaster was the idea that there were some old books that were written some time ago that contained in them a prediction about the arrival of a special set of twins. And we also learned that for the first time the Academy has accepted a pair of twins named the Saldanas. My hope was that mentioning the twins in this way might shroud them in mystery from the beginning and might also give readers something to look forward to understanding and deciphering in the future. And then finally, the chapter ends with what appears to be the suicide of the headmaster, and the last image that the reader is left with is the image of the headmaster's broken body on the courtyard of his garden. I wrote it this way to give a sense of there being real stakes, to give a sense that the villain in this book is a very cruel individual, also very determined and willing to go to great lengths. And this is some pretty dark stuff, a murder that he's admitted to and another murder by apparent suicide, but I can assure you that that is as dark as it gets, and there really isn't any more violence or things of this nature that I have planned for the rest of the book. It's simply the catalyst to get the story rolling and also create the sense of some real danger for our characters. Well, that's about all I can think of to discuss regarding the first chapter in the book. The plan for the next chapter is simply to introduce some more of the main characters and also add a little bit more to the background and context and environment that these characters are working in. Thank you so much for being here at the beginning of this project. I hope to see you again next week and every week after that until we get this thing done. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with all your friends, let them know about it, and please subscribe and come along for the journey. Next up, Chapter 1. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.